red lines were crossed.
They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean.
Second chances were squandered. And goodwill, once extended, has now been withdrawn. Bangladesh's textile sector hasn't just lost a supplier, it's lost a generous friend. So what's triggered this fallout? And why does it matter? I'm Shubhangi Sharma. Let's talk about the latest economic spat between India and Bangladesh. In 2020, as the world battled the COVID-19 pandemic, global trade came to a standstill. Borders were closed, flights were grounded, supply chains froze, and few economies in the Indian subcontinent were hit as hard as Bangladesh. The backbone of Bangladesh's economy, its ready-made garments sector or the RMG sector, faced an existential crisis. This single industry accounts for roughly 85% of Bangladesh's total exports and 13% of its GDP, employing nearly 4 million workers, mostly women. When the world demanded masks, medical textiles, gloves, and hospital clothing, Bangladesh had the orders, but no way to deliver. That's when India stepped in. At the peak of the crisis, the Sheikh Hasina-led government in Dhaka reached out to New Delhi, seeking help to overcome crippling logistical hurdles. In response, India extended a critical lifeline, a transshipment facility via Indian ports and airports. But why was this so important? Because Bangladesh's own ports and airports couldn't handle the volume. The difference was stark. Shipping costs from Kolkata ranged between $2 and $2.5 per kilogram, while the same cargo would cost $5 to $6 per kilo if shipped directly from Bangladesh. For Bangladeshi exporters, this facility was a game changer. But for India, it was a favor extended, free of cost, under the belief that neighbors stand by each other in times of crisis. Here's how the facility worked. Bangladeshi export items were transported through Indian land borders and transferred to Indian ports and airports. From here, they would be shipped away to their global destinations like the UAE, the UK, the USA, and France. Bangladeshi goods were trucked to Indian land customs stations and from there to major ports such as Kolkata, Haldia, Nhava Sheva, or airports like Delhi and Kolkata. This was a beneficial arrangement for Bangladeshi exporters. The country's airports lack enough cargo handling facilities compared to Kolkata and Delhi airports, which have higher cargo handling capacity and also have direct flights to almost all routes in the world. But it's also the cost that matters. Cargo shipping costs are lower in India. Shipping products from Kolkata airport to Western nations, as I said, cost 3 times less. So do you see the advantage? Add to this the fact that this facility was extended for free. No additional costs for accessing Indian infrastructure. This was not just a gesture of goodwill, it was a diplomatic and economic favor at the highest level. But fast forward to today, that goodwill has worn thin. The very facility that empowered Bangladesh's exports has now been revoked. The reason cited by India was the growing congestion at Indian ports and airports, creating backlogs and driving up costs for India's own exporters. The Apparel Export Promotion Council of India had previously even urged the government to act, but the final trigger may have come not from logistics, but from politics. Even before the withdrawal of this transshipment facility, Bangladesh had been imposing restrictions on land ports and targeting cotton imports from India, showing the new regime's intent to scuttle economic ties with India. Around the same time, Muhammad Yunus, the leader of Bangladesh's interim government, made a deeply controversial and menacing statement about India's northeast, in Beijing no less.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy.
Calling for China's involvement in India's northeastern states, Yunus called them landlocked and said that Bangladesh was the only guardian of the ocean, suggesting that it controlled their access to the sea, a comment many saw as not just offensive but strategically provocative. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma hit back sharply, calling the statement offensive and strongly condemnable. He flagged the remark as an echo of older narratives that sought to isolate the Northeast from the rest of India by targeting the fragile Chicken Necks corridor. He said, and I quote, "Such provocative statements by Mohammad Yunus must not be taken lightly, as they reflect deeper strategic considerations and long-standing agendas." India needed to draw the red line, but it gave Yunus a final chance to change course. A week later, Prime Minister Modi granted a meeting to Mohammad Yunus on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit in Bangkok. The meeting lasted 40 minutes, with India raising its concerns about attacks on minorities in Bangladesh. Dhaka's version of the meeting, however, reeked of arrogance, calling for a reality check on what it calls social media propaganda, and even suggesting that India was open to the idea of restraining and extraditing exiled Bangladeshi President Sheikh Hasina, who is set to be in New Delhi. Indian government sources called this framing of the meeting mischievous and politically motivated. Days later, India officially withdrew the transshipment privilege, signaling that goodwill cannot be one-sided. Clearly, the Indian side was not pleased, and the unelected leader of the caretaker government in Dhaka had struck out. This decision is a major blow for Bangladesh's textile sector, the backbone of its economy, which was already reeling from a crisis exacerbated by the violent regime change in August last year. For example, 170 factories in the Beximco Industrial Park have shut down already, with 40,000 jobs already lost in a single cluster. From now on, Bangladeshi exporters will need to reroute their shipments through alternative hubs like in Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Pakistan, drastically increasing freight costs and lead times. The president of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Farooq Hassan, has publicly appealed to India to reconsider, calling the move a challenge to the sector and its competitiveness. Let me quote, "Our freight costs will go up, our lead time will increase, it will reduce our competitiveness. I request the Indian government to withdraw this decision because we are your neighbors." But instead of using diplomacy, Dhaka has complicated matters further. In a move that was seen as a retaliation, Bangladesh halted yarn imports via Indian land ports, citing undervaluation and quality control concerns. This decision has drawn backlash from Bangladesh's own exporters, who depend on Indian yarn for affordable supply. Bangladesh's reliance on India for yarn is massive. 95% of its yarn imports come from India, and the current disruption could push costs even higher. India was the perfect source of yarn, you see, the heart and soul of all things textiles. It has the capacity to deliver large consignments on time, with warehouses stacked at the border. The quality is one of the most reliable, and it costs cheaper than anywhere else. According to Muhammad Hatim, president of the Bangladesh Knitwear Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the price of 30 single yarn in Bangladesh is $3.5 per kilogram, whereas it is $2.9 per kilogram in India and $2.96 per kilogram in Vietnam. He says that this ban will be suicidal for apparel exporters, warning that manufacturers would face raw material shortages that could further cripple production. But will this hurt India? That's unlikely. India has several textile hubs across the country, the most famous ones being in Tirupur and Ludhiana. During the political crisis in Bangladesh, many apparel companies diverted their orders to India. In fact, Indian leaders are waking up to India's potential and pushing for more growth in the textile business. For example, Yogi Adityanath, Uttar Pradesh's chief minister, recently announced the establishment of a 1,000-acre mega textile and apparel park in UP. And he did not forget to mention Bangladesh. He said, and I quote, "If Bangladesh, with a population of 16 crore, can excel in ready-made garment exports, why can't India, with 140 crore people, achieve similar success?" The essential question is this: what happens when India decides to aggressively boost its own textile exports, even if it comes at the expense of Bangladesh? For Yunus, the yarn ban may just be an expensive face saver, But for Bangladesh's textile sector, Yunus's government is proving to be an existential threat. From having a friend in India to a hard-headed rival, Bangladesh has everything to lose in the game of ready-made garments. India has made it clear. Access to Indian infrastructure or Indian goodwill gestures in general is not unconditional. It marks the end of an unspoken arrangement where friendship and good neighborliness was repaid with trust and goodwill. Whether this rift is temporary or long-term will depend on Bangladesh's political choices in the months ahead. Because as this episode shows, geography is permanent, but access is earned.